guys, I wanted to come along today and just sit down and talk with you a little about my life. Um, some things I want to share with you. First of all, I thought I would share with you. We'll just sit out here on my porch and have a little porch time together. Wanted to share with you how I met my husband Alan. I was, I think I was 18. Yeah, I was 18 years old, and I had left that summer to come to college in Martin, Tennessee, University of Tennessee at Martin. Um, and I came here to go to college. And my suite mate, I lived at the university in a dorm, and my suite mate, a dear, nice girl, knew Alan, and I was getting packed up to go home for the weekend. And she said, "Oh, why don't you stay for the weekend? Don't go back home. Don't go to Memphis," where I lived in Memphis, where I had lived since I was 2 years old. And so I said, "Well, I really need to go home and, you know, take my laundry and do my laundry and, see my parents and my brothers, and I need to get home." "Oh, no, stay. I've got somebody you really need to meet." So I did. I stayed, and I went out with this boy. But I told her, I said, "Well, I was pledging a sorority at that time, and I said, we're having a function." It was October the 28th. It was a few days before Halloween. I said, "Well, we're having a function over at the gym. We're having a little Halloween party for all the faculty's children, and I'll be over there, working over there with the children." And she said, "Oh, that'll be fine. You can come over there. He'll meet you after it's over." I said, "Okay." I said, "I will definitely be in a costume because we're doing a Halloween party." And she said, "He won't mind." So I thought that was kind of strange, but I said, "Okay." So anyway, he called me, and we made arrangements to meet, and I told him what time to meet, and we met in a parking lot across from the gym, which was in the parking lot of the Fine Arts building at the college at Martin. And I was dressed as a pilgrim. Yeah, I had a black dress with a white apron and the pilgrim hat and everything, all dressed up as a pilgrim. So I bet he thought, "Okay, what in the world?" So, but anyway, he knew I was going to be in costume. So, however, we got the arrangements made that we would go out, the next night. However, when I did see him and met him that evening, I wanted to make sure, he was, you want to check people out. And you certainly need to check people out now, but this was in 71, I think. Yeah, 71. This was in 1971. I checked him out. He was really cute, really, really cute. And so we went out, and the rest is history. We have currently been married 53 years. I lived in Memphis. We got married in Memphis. He moved to Memphis from the country. So he did not like Memphis. He did not like the city. So we did not stay in the city. We moved back to Martin, where his parents were, his brothers were, his grandmother was, his family was. And I left my family and I moved up here. I love the country. I love the city. I love Memphis. I didn't know really anything different, and I loved it. But however, when I got to the country, there's a gnat out here. I really did enjoy the country. I love the peace and quiet of it. So anyway, we lived here. We lived in a duplex when we first got married, and I think we lived there 12 years, maybe, right about 12 years. And I was at work one day, and I was in nursing school, and he called me. I went back to college later after we got married later. He called me one day at work, and he said, "I found us a house." And I said, "Okay, that's great. We're going to get a house." I'm so excited. And it was our log cabin house that we had to totally redo, that I have a video on, and I'm going to link it up here so you can see the video. How in disrepair the home was when we took it on. So in 1982 or 83, we got the house. It was his great-grandfather's log cabin where his great-grandfather had lived. And the house had been empty for, 7 years. It had been empty and trees had grown up through it and everything. But back on subject here. Let me get back. We got married. We had 3 daughters, and they're all grown now with children of their own. So that's how we met. And of course, I went back to college later. Let's see, how old was I? 30, I think I was 33, 32 or 33 when I went back to get my RN degree. And it took me, well, yeah, I graduated in 86. The program was very lengthy and very hard, I can say. But Alan was a lot of help to me to take care of the kids. He cooked some meals at night so I could study. He was very helpful. He was very instrumental in getting me through college. So that meant a lot to me. I won't ever forget it. One time I came home from school and he was mopping the kitchen floor, so he was a huge help. What else I want to talk to you about is that I have 3 daughters. Holly, my oldest. Hope is my middle child. She's also lives down the road from me. And Candace is my youngest daughter. And they have children, and I have grandkids, which I love dearly. And I also, my oldest daughter, has a daughter named Faith, who has a beautiful, beautiful, great grandchild for me. Faith and Jacob have a beautiful daughter, and they are just lovely parents. I try to think of something, you know, that I can advise them on, or something I can tell them to do, or something, you know, some kind of direction that I can give those two. But I'm telling you, they are wonderful parents. They act like they've been parenting their whole life, so I don't understand it. They are wonderful parents. They're doing a great job with my great-grandchild, and I'm very proud of the way they nourish and the love that they provide to my great-grandchild. If you have a great-grandbaby, you know what I'm talking about. You think, oh, this grandchild, there's nothing like her. Yeah, but wait till you have a great-grandbabe. There's nothing like that either, guys. There's just nothing like it in the world. A little bit more about me. I was born in Arkansas, in Forest City, Arkansas. I'm not going to tell you what year that was. My parents lived there. They grew up there in Caldwell, Arkansas. My parents met when they were 15 years old. They both lived around the Caldwell, Arkansas area. My grandfather, my mother's dad, was a Baptist minister, and they met and they went to church together. And my dad wanted to sit on the same pew as my mother when they were 15. And my granddaddy said, you can sit on the same pew, but you have to keep a songbook between you. You can't get any closer than the songbook. So they could sit on the same pew at 15, but there had to be a songbook between them. And my mother said that her daddy said, absolutely no holding hands on their pew either. So they got married, and they made a great life together. And my dad was an electrician. He worked in Memphis, and they built a lot of commercial not built, but they did all the electrical wiring in a lot of commercial buildings downtown in Memphis when I was coming up as a kid. When I left for college in 71, my parents moved to Illinois. Town was Paris, Illinois, and there was a factory there that made sinks and Weber grills, the big black dome Weber grills. And so my dad worked there in that factory and was the manager of that plant for years. And that's how they ended up in Illinois. My middle brother, Mark, which we saw his plane, did a video on his airplane. He stayed in Paris. He met a lovely girl there, Cindy. They got married and they had a family, and they stayed in Paris. Well, come along years down the way, Dad relocated the factory, and found a place that he wanted to relocate the factory, and they moved it to Ruston, Louisiana. So when Dad relocated the factory in Ruston, Louisiana, I wanted them to relocate it to Martin, Tennessee, but he couldn't do it. But so anyway, he ended up in Ruston, Louisiana, and my brother decided that he would move with him and work at the plant. So my brother moved to Louisiana. However, my younger brother stayed. My younger brother David, that has the bees. I've got a video on the bees. David actually had met a lovely girl and had a family, and he stayed around the Illinois area. So David is in Illinois, and then of course Mark moved to Ruston, Louisiana with Dad in the factory. Now, Dad and Mom moved up here to Martin after Dad retired. And you know, I want to recall the year, but I cannot. But I'm thinking the year they moved up here was 2004. They moved here. Yes, they did. They moved here in the September of 2004 to Martin. Well, with my mom and dad in town, when they had been so far away from me for so many years after I married Alan, it was Christmas to me every single day. Now just remember the date, September 24, when they moved here. And I was thrilled every morning to get up and go over there and see them. And every time that I wasn't at work, I was over there. Well, my mother passed away October the 7th after she moved here in September. I mean, I guess the stress of the move was entirely too much for her. She did have some cardiac issues. She did have a severe rheumatoid arthritis. She did have some comorbidities and quite a few health problems. So I know that it was God's will for her not to live, but it was devastating for me since I just got to be in such close distance to her that she passed away. So that's how I got to Martin, and I'm still here. My baby brother is in Illinois. He's still there. And Mark, my middle brother, is now living in Louisiana. And we're all so far apart. It's 5 hours to get to David's, and it's about 7 hours to get down to Louisiana to see Mark, which Alan is so accommodating to drive me down there or to take me or to go with me to see my brothers, because he understands how I've always been away from my family. You know, since the day we got married, I was away from them since we moved back away from, we didn't stay in Memphis long when we first got married. So I've always been away from my family. And he understands that. He has 2 brothers also. We have a lot, Alan and I have a lot in common, but we're very much opposites. But he has 2 brothers, and one of his brothers lives here on the farm down the road from us, and the other brother lives on the farm down from us. So they're right here. They talk, they see each other every day. They're close. He has no sisters, I have no sisters. So that's how I've evolved here. Like I said, I went to nursing school. I got out. I worked as a nurse for 40 years. I raised my kids. And my hobbies, basically, have always been gardening, getting in the yard, digging, planting stuff, watching it grow, watching it die. You know how things die when you don't want them to, and you have to dig them up and throw them out. Well, you know, it happens. And when his mom and dad lived, they were across the road from us, which was great. His dad always had a massive garden over at his house. And then his dad would bring the tractor over here and put a big garden behind our house. We always had plenty of food. We put it up. His mom froze it and canned it. And there was just, you know, an abundance. There was no ever any time that we might not have had everything we wanted to eat, but we had beans and potatoes and tomatoes and corn and all kinds of things that you can make from those dishes. We had plenty to eat, peas, and we had so much to be thankful for. And his mom and dad were so frugal and knew how to be sustainable. And they taught Alan and myself that, and I learned that from them, how to make things work. My daddy was a lot that way too. My dad had come up uh, in a large family. I think there were 15 of them, and his father passed away early when my dad was 15. So there were a lot of younger brothers under him that they had to be very frugal to make it in those days too. So we were raised, Alan and myself, by people who had gone through hardships and hard times, and they knew how to make things work, and they taught Alan and myself that. So Alan and I have been that way during our lives. We're not wasteful, and we don't want for a lot of things. We're mainly grateful for a lot of things that we have today and a lot of opportunities that we have. Alan always worked as a carpenter most of his life. He built buildings and homes, that kind of thing. Construction, doing roofing, flooring, concrete, a lot of hard work. And then when we moved out here in '85, he got a phone call, and he worked in the sheriff's department back in the '70s as a sheriff's deputy. However, in '85, he got a phone call to work for the Martin Police Department, and it was a wonderful job. It was an increase in pay. It was a day shift hours. We would have good insurance, and so of course he took that job. I worked as a nurse, and he worked uh, as a police officer, and everyone thought that we met, in a hospital somewhere, but no, that's not how it worked out. We did not meet at a hospital somewhere. We are total opposites. People say, well, how could you have stayed married that long? Well, he went to work, I went to work. He worked different shifts, I worked different shifts. We would pass a lot in the hallway, coming and going. He was on a rotating shift at the police department. He would work 6 weeks on days, 6 weeks on 3 to 11, and 6 weeks at night. So it was a lot of shift work for him, which is very hard physically on your body to do shift work. But he enjoyed it, and he did it. And I did the same thing a lot of times. I would switch up off of a shift or do an extra shift if they needed it. So our kids, our girls, we taught them to be pretty sustainable themselves. We weren't always there to pick up the pieces. They had to pitch in, and they had to help, and they had to learn to cook and to clean and take care of themselves and each other. So of course, we taught them to drive as soon as they could, so that they could get to school and get back, and get the others to school and get back. So we kind of taught our children to be responsible for themselves. They just needed to know that, and that's the way we raised them. And they were out here in the country. They had free range out here. They had four-wheelers, and they were girls, but they were very, I want to say they were very energetic, and they enjoyed riding a four-wheeler out here in the country, and they grew up out here in the country, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. That was Alan coming out the back door. He'd been sound asleep, and I didn't want to wake him up, but he could come out here and join us, but I don't know if he will or not. But he went back inside. But yeah, we've been together that long, and we've had a good life. Like I said, we've always been so thankful for family and our family ties, and we've always been so thankful for our extended family, our friends, our neighbors. Our co-workers. There's always been so many people that have meant so much to us. So, we really, we just enjoyed our family. And here goes somebody going by. We've had so much traffic out here today. Guys, I just wanted to sit down and kind of tell you just a little bit about myself. When I initially went to school, I came up here in '71. When I first came to Martin, before I met Alan, I was going to school I wanted to be, and had always enjoyed um, psychology. And I was going to school to be a clinical psychologist. Um, and I'll tell you how that got spurred. When I was a junior in high school, I did a science project. We would have a science, I'm trying to think what that was called. Oh, everybody could participate in a science project, and we had a big deal in the auditorium. Everybody set up what they had, you know, their project that they had done and they had studied. Well, when I was a junior, I won that science project, and I was really taken back by that, which it wasn't that difficult to me, but people thought it was really interesting. And what I did was I did a big project on the extra chromosome and the effect that it had on people's lives. And I just thought it was very interesting, and other people must have thought it was interesting too. So that's kind of how I got into that. Now, um, I liked to read a lot when I was younger, and I read a lot, and most of the books that I read were psychology books. So I did enjoy psychology. I did use psychology a lot in my nursing. When I went into nursing school, we did take psychology. We had psychology in nursing. Uh, and of course, when people are sick, it takes a lot of psychology sometimes. It takes a lot of psychology sometimes for our families when they're upset and worried, that when they're very tense when somebody's ill. So I've always enjoyed psychology. Um, Now that I'm the age that I am now, I'm retired. I love the life that Alan and I have built together. Were there times that I thought about leaving? I don't really ever think there was ever a time that anything got so bad that I would have ever thought about leaving him. Um, he was just too dear to me, and my kids were too dear to me that I would have never, it never, that was not in the equation for me. Luckily, he was not an alcoholic. You know, there's so many things that people go through, and no, I did not have to go through any of that, and I'm very thankful for that, um, that I wasn't put through that, because I know a lot of people have had a lot on them, and they have to get out of their marriage, and I understand that. My kids have never given me any trouble. They have been good kids. Um, they they did receive a lot of discipline during their life when I was younger. They got a lot of direction, a lot of boundaries, a lot of limits, and a lot of scolding. And we're not really given an opportunity much to go in a bad direction. I would always try to, and Alan would too, to keep them in the right, going in the right way. Plus, Alan's parents were across the road. Excuse me. His grandmother was down the road too, and she was a godsend because, you know, the elderly people uh, really believed in discipline back in the day, and they taught us too to believe in discipline and to believe in the boundaries. Children need and they want boundaries, and so we gave them we gave them boundaries here. So my children never have caused me any grief, heartache, pain, suffering, and I'm thankful for that. I have done in my life things that I am very thankful that I got the opportunity to do, to take care of people at their worst times when they're sick and when they're hurting, or when they're brokenhearted, or when they're grieving. There was a lot of grief in my profession as a nurse. Um, a lot of people lost family members, and they lost children, and they lost infants, and it was devastating. So it was a blessing that I was there, and that God would use me to comfort them. And I would pray every day before I went to work that whatever the day brings, I would just pray that God would use me to be there for him, to say the right thing, and to help to bring some, um, just some ray of sunshine, or just say the right thing at the right time to help somebody at the worst time. Because, when we're at our worst, or when we're at our weakest, God is always at his strongest. So I would just ask him to always be with me and be his strongest, which I knew he was when I'm at my weakest, when I'm suffering along with the people that I was taking care of, or the families. But I could not let them know that I was just as weak as they were. Some of my patients that I took care of for quite a long time, I would get very attached. And when I lost them, I was just as devastated as they were. But I could not let them know that. Here comes a Jeep full of people going by. They're out running their kids around up and down the road in this nice weather. So guys, that's a little bit about me. I know it's not very exciting. I wish I had some wonderful, exciting story to tell you about some exciting things that happened to me along in my life. But honestly, I have been very fortunate that not a lot has occurred, or, nothing devastating has happened to me. I was well taken care of by my parents. They were, like I told you, they set a lot of limits and boundaries with me as a child. They did not let me go wild, and I was not raised in a barn, as some people say around here. Were you raised in a barn? When you do something crazy or stupid, that's what people say in the South, in Tennessee. Were you raised in a barn? Nobody ever asked me that, so I guess Mom and Dad did a good job. And I'm in the fourth quarter of my life now, and I do a lot of reflecting, and I reflect on a lot of events and times and places and people and things, and I feel like I've been very fortunate and very blessed. And I wanted to do the YouTube channel so that when I retired as a nurse, I felt like I don't have that connection. I don't get to talk to people. I don't get to help them. I don't get to show them how to, make squash and onions. Or I don't get to show you how to fry green tomatoes and things like that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do a YouTube channel or a cooking show, or maybe I'll write a cookbook or something like that. And I had some persistent family members who said, oh, why don't you do a cooking show? And I said, oh, I can never do that. You got to be really smart, and you got to really know how to cook to do a cooking show. And they said, oh, you do fine. Just get on there and just cook and just start, just do your thing. And so I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And they were like, oh, yeah, you'll be fine. Just get on there and just try. And I thought, well, I've tried a lot of things in my life, so I guess I'll just try to get on YouTube and share things with you guys that maybe you will enjoy. And the whole objective of the show was that maybe if I could take your mind off of something that is bad for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, if I could just take your mind off of something to give you a little block of relaxation, or just a little time of peace and quiet in your life, if I could do that, I wanted to do that. I wanted you to forget about anything that's bothering you, anything that you can't figure out, anything that you're confused about. I just wanted to come on and take that away from you and just talk to you, and basically let you just have a little relaxation and think, oh my gosh, that girl doesn't even know how to cook. I would do this, or I would cut it that way, or I would peel my potatoes before I boiled them, or I just wanted to do that so that you could say, oh, I would never put that much salt, or oh my gosh, why do you use that much sugar? Well, guys, you guys have got to know, in the South, now we're going to use some sugar. Now we're going to sweeten it up. And my daddy's mother, she was a great cook. She's been gone a long time. And I loved her to death, but she used sugar in everything she made. She puts sugar in everything. I mean, if she fried an egg, she sprinkled sugar on it. Now, you know, her generation, they were without sugar. You know, it was rationed during the war. So when they got back to getting sugar, she put it on everything. But in the South, we do. We put it in our cornbread. We put it in everything. So, but if you think, oh yeah, you know, that's way too much sugar. Oh my gosh, how could you put that much salt in that? Well, you know, that's just the way that I cook, and that's the way we like it. And honestly, that's the way I was taught. I had a lot of good teaching coming up. I had a lot of people that invested a lot of um, they invested a lot of their time in me. They sat down with me. They counseled me. They convicted me. Um, they made me feel appreciated. Um, and I think we need to do that more with our young people coming up. We need to let them know that we feel they're important and that they have worth and that they have meaning. And I had that growing up. Uh, and I still have it. I get a lot of that from Alan. He's a very good husband to me. He makes me feel very important, and I know that I'm loved. So there would have never been any reason for me to even have a thought of leaving my marriage that I've had for such a long time. It's just a real comfortable place for me right now in my marriage, and that's a good thing. That's an okay thing at my age. If you guys have any questions about my past, about anything that you're going through in your life, if ask me if I've gone through it, what did I do? Um, I'm not saying my life was perfect and I didn't have problems. I'm not really saying that. I've had to deal with some things. I've had to, you know, overcome things that I didn't think maybe I could overcome. But if you're in that spot where you've got something, you know, you can send me a comment, and I'll be glad to talk with you and tell you what I did if I went through something like that. But I'm hoping that your day is going good, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've enjoyed our talk today. And if you're going through a little hard patch right now, my thing that I would encourage you to do is to go to the Dollar Tree or somewhere like that and get a notebook and start journaling, writing down everything that is good in your life, and write down things that are bothering you and what you can do about it, what you can change about it, what can you change about yourself. Just journal, just write it all down, write your feelings down. I think you'll be amazed if you do it in the morning. That's great. Or in the evening. I always journaled in the evening. I would write down everybody that I saw today, because it was always a blessing to me to see people. Maybe people I hadn't seen in a while. I'd run into them somewhere, and I just love that. I would write down everything that happened, what I did, uh, how I felt about doing it. Was I happy to do it? Did it give me a lot of peace and a lot of serenity? And sometimes we do things um, like, let's say housework. Sometimes we do housework and we think, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just going to have to do it again tomorrow. I'll have 2 full sinks of dishes tomorrow. Gosh, why am I having to do this today and tomorrow and the next day? Well, the thing is, if you're doing dishes, you've probably got food. And if you've got food, your belly's full. And if your belly's full, you're probably really happy. So you're really not unhappy doing the dishes. So be thankful for things like um, that you know, just be happy if you can. Um, you have a choice. You can either be happy or you can be miserable. So just take the happy road. I mean, it's a lot smoother than thinking that everything is bad. Guys, I have enjoyed talking with you. I'm going to get off of here. I probably have some dirty dishes I need to do in the sink. I always say, I've got 2 sinks full of dirty dishes. And one of these days, I don't know when, But one of these days, I'm going to get me one of those big single sink farms. You know, the big ones you can bathe the baby in. I'm going to get one of those big ones, and it's going to be white. It's going to be so pretty. And I'll say, oh, I've got one sink full of dishes. Won't that sound better? It'll probably be a lot more dishes than two sinks. I have a divider in my sink now. But one day I'm going to get me one of those nice farm sinks put in, and I'm going to enjoy that so much. So guys, please take care of yourselves. Be happy, and be grateful for the little things. Just be grateful for, just look around and see how many little things that you have to be grateful for, and you don't even really, you may not even know that, hey, I really should be grateful for this. I really should. So many people don't even realize how much they do have. Don't think about what you don't have. Think about what you do have. And I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. I gotta get in and do those dishes. Bye, guys.